Welcome to the Microsoft Cloud Show, episode 58. In this episode, we're going to talk to Sonya Koptyev with Microsoft about some of the training opportunities for Office 365, and also talk about the latest news in the Microsoft Azure space. Recorded live November the 26th, 2014.
Welcome to the Microsoft Cloud Show, the only place to stay up to date on everything going on in the Microsoft Cloud world, including Windows Azure, Office 365, SharePoint, Exchange, Lync, and related technologies. Just the information, no marketing, no BS. I'm Chris Johnson.
And I'm Andrew Call.
And we're just two dudes telling you how we see it.
Hey, CJ, how you doing this morning?
Very well. Thanks, AC.
We're a bit punchy already. We've been doing this for a little bit now, and all of a sudden, 30 minutes into our regular recording time, now we hit record.
I think my coffee's just hitting.
Oh, yeah, mine's empty. But at any rate, how are you doing today, man?
Not bad, my friend, not bad. Just gotten back from a really busy period of the year. I think it's fair to say that it's been crazy since, basically pretty much all of October was crazy in the run-up to Tech Ed Europe. Then I had Tech Ed Europe, came back for what felt like 2 days. I think it was really a week. And then went back over to, went over to Amsterdam in the Netherlands for another show called SharePoint Connect.
How was that show? I saw some pictures posted from that one. It looked pretty good.
Really cool. Actually, it's a great show all about SharePoint. Obviously, there was tons of Office 365 content there as well. Great little show, really nice venue, great city. It was my first time really visiting Amsterdam, and so got to see a bit of the city and hang out, and it was really, really fun. I really enjoyed it. It was excellent, great lineup of speakers, and they do an excellent conference. Highly recommended. It's called SharePoint Connect. That's
very cool. Yeah, I saw some pictures on Twitter, saw some pictures on Facebook. I did. Were you in the room when a gentleman by the name of Wouter van Wunkt did a presentation and did a whole who's hot or not or something like that? It was a picture of myself and Dan Holm next to each other, and I didn't get much context.
No, I wasn't. Unfortunately. I definitely chatted with him, but I wasn't in that session. That's okay, buddy. I would have voted for you.
I appreciate it. Well, apparently both of us lost, so that's okay.
There's no winning in those, huh?
No, not at all. But I've worked with Wouter before, and God, he's an absolute riot. But I hadn't talked to him in a long time, and then all of a sudden, I think it was Matthias who's behind SPLive, free tool that lets you do analysis of fully trusted solutions that you want to move to the cloud. And he posted a picture on Facebook or on Twitter, and then copied me on it. I remember I was sitting there. I think I was sitting there at SPLive, another conference I'll talk about in a second, and I can just see the grainy picture, and I can see a picture that I recognize of me and a picture that I recognize of Dan. And I just wanted to just teleport myself right into that room, oh my God, what's going on?
What is happening here? Yeah.
Yeah, a little scary, but what did you do at the conference? What were you talking about?
I keynoted on the first day. So I talked about all the stuff that Microsoft are up to in Office 365 for developers. So kind of did a whole bunch of talk about the kinds of things we've been doing over the last year and some new stuff that's coming. And how we think about development in the cloud.
Gotcha.
And then I did another session on all the new APIs, so the new Office 365 cloud APIs.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and how to connect to them and authenticate and what you can do with them and a few examples of those. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. I love Amsterdam. I haven't been there in a very long time.
Yeah, I was only there for 3 or 4 days, and so I didn't get a lot of time to look around, but from what I saw, it's a beautiful city, and I'd love to go back.
I haven't been at as the same events that you've been at, or probably as busy, but I've been busy probably since mid-October as well, and so I know that it's one of those kind of stretches. You once you get in one of those stretches, you're going someplace, and you're like, I know I'm flying all the way around the world just to go to another city, and people may look at it and say 3 days. That seems like a bit of a waste, and you're like, no, I need to go get my job done and get home.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I would have liked an extra day to look around, but not at the expense of getting home back to the family after all this travel. So maybe some other time.
Taking some time off?
Yeah, a little bit over Thanksgiving weekend coming up, and then I'm off to sunny Mexico for a holiday with my family plus a whole bunch of other families, actually. So there's going to be a whole group of us go down and get out of some of this Pacific Northwest winter.
Gotcha. Well, cool, man.
In other good news, Well, no, hold on. Let's talk about you first. What have you been up to?
It's all about me, right? So I guess while you were at a conference over in Amsterdam, I was at a conference down in Orlando called SPLive 360. It's one of it's like a sub track or a sub conference to the bigger VS Live show. That has there's a modern apps track, there's a VS Live track, and then there's I think it's called Tech Mentor track, which is like an IT pro thing. I am a co-chairman for that conference and recruiting speakers and content and stuff and organizing it with Matt McDermott, another SharePoint MVP. So I did a workshop and a couple different breakout sessions. And at the end of the show, they do this thing where they get all of the conference chairs together and they put the chairs in chairs and put us like in a big keynote room with a mic. And we do there's a moderator that has a bunch of questions primed. And then the audience gets to start asking questions. And there was media there. And I know that one of the things that I said got quoted in an article in the Redmond Dev magazine or the Redmond magazine. My name wasn't quoted correctly, but it was me. I'm not Andrew Cornell. I was Andrew Connell. So hopefully he's fixed that one. But it was neat getting a different perspective on stuff that's not just SharePoint and 365 related. But it was good. It was a good show.
Great. Glad to hear it went well. That's awesome. Yeah, Sonya, who's on my team at Microsoft, was down there obviously and said it was great fun. So sounded like a good time.
Yeah, it's good. Sonya Koptyev was there. She and actually we're going to just as a bit of an update to everybody who's a listener of the show. Which I guess if you hear me saying that, then you're a listener of the show. It's kind of cool. Where I can guarantee that people listening to the show right now will be listening to it when this comes out in a few weeks. How's that from being meta?
Dude, I'm so lost in the meta-ness.
It's kind of like when I was having lunch with a friend named Chris, and I happened to be talking to you on the phone yesterday, and I pick up Chris. He says, "Who are you talking to?" I said, "Chris." And he's like, "What?" And you're on the phone. I said, "Who are you going to lunch with?" I'm like, "Chris." And then you two start.
Oh my God, it's Marty McFly.
Oh, it's really crazy. But yeah, so this episode 58, is one of three that kind of is batched up together. The week that I was at SPLive, I sat down with our keynote speaker, Sonya Koptyev, who is on your team. We're going to play that interview at the end of this episode, or in the second, once we get through some of the Azure news in this episode. And I'm going to be out next week. I have shoulder surgery, and I'll be heavily doped up on some pain pills, so I don't want to try and do a recording.
Oh, we should totally do a spoof recording. It'd be hilarious.
We might do something like that, make our outtakes. But and then you turn around and you go on vacation right away. And so what we're doing is we're kind of batching up 3 different interviews. We're recording the intros to all of them today. So they'll come out over the next 3 weeks so we can keep our normal release cadence. But yeah, so a couple different interviews. So 58 is going to be about news and an interview that I had with Sonya. 59 is going to be about Office 365 developer training with somebody else on your team, Jeremy Thake. And then episode 60 will be on cloud identity and Azure AD and Office 365 identities and stuff with Paul Schaeflein. I personally love how these interviews came out. I really like the discussion that we had out of them. So I'll be really curious to hear everybody's feedback over the next few weeks as these kind of go on. And just know that we're not taking a break here. We're both have like crazy schedules going on and making sure we can get it done the right way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, hopefully it'll all work out nicely.
Absolutely.
Hey, so before we get into the meat and potatoes, we got a couple of new reviews in iTunes.
Ah, sweet.
Want to take a look at those?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's fire away. You got iTunes up so you can read them out for us?
Yeah, I do. I only install iTunes for this reason. Only use iTunes to take a look at the Microsoft Cloud show in there. So
awesome.
All right. So we've got 3 reviews here. We've got a 4-star review. Don't worry, we'll let you off that extra star. And then we've got 2 5-star reviews. So the first one is from apologies if I pronounced your name wrong here, Ben, but Ben Stegging.
Hey, Ben. I know Ben.
Excellent.
Ben's a friend. Ben's a local friend of mine.
Nice. I hope you didn't have to bribe him for this. So he says, best way to stay up to date on the latest cloud news across the various cloud platforms. I don't have a lot of time to read up on all the latest news, and this podcast is a great way to get an overview of the latest news and updates, and then read about aspects I want to dig into deeper. Very educational and filled with lots of entertainment and humor. Keep up the great work, guys. Nice. Thank you very much, Ben. That's awesome. We love getting those reviews.
Thank you very much, Ben. Really do appreciate that. For those of you who don't know, Ben's a SharePoint IT Pro side of the camp, and he's doing some really cool stuff with Azure and SharePoint and hosting it in the cloud and stuff. So definitely, I'd watch his blog. He's Ben Stegink, Stegink on Twitter, and from there you can see his blog too. But I'd definitely check him out. SharePoint Ben at SharePoint Ben on Twitter.
Oh, cool! Excellent.
Yeah.
So we've got another one here from Cyphertext. He says, "Great show for SharePoint. Love the work that AC and CJ are doing with this podcast. The content is refreshingly current."
Oh, hey, that's Scott Hoag. I know him.
Isn't that nice?
Very cool. Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. Of course, because he left a 5-star review. So that's definitely a good guy.
There you go. And the final one, must listen. It's addictive, from Nick X Patel. He says, "It's been amazing listening to these podcasts, usually releases once a week, extremely relevant in the Microsoft Cloud technologies, primarily focused on Office 365, Azure, and SharePoint space. My favorite part about these podcasts are AC and CJ themselves."
Booyah. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that.
They span both consumer and Microsoft point of view, and they both are highly opinionated. Never. Come on. You and me, opinionated? You got to be kidding.
Not a bit.
So they're both highly opinionated with very effective, balanced view. If you are interested in knowing stuff about MS cloud technologies, what better place than both AC and CJ to do research for you? Great stuff. Thank you very much, Nick X Patel, Cyphertext, and Ben Stegink for their reviews. And please keep them coming, people. So throw them in iTunes if that's the way you subscribe to our podcast. We love getting reviews.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks everybody. I really do appreciate those interviews and or those interviews. Those reviews. Yeah, and hey, just a little FYI too. So I'm on iOS, right? And I don't like using iTunes at all. And I found an app for getting podcasts that is so much better than the out-of-the-box one. It's called Overcast.
Oh, yeah. Overcast is amazing.
Yeah, don't have to use the podcast app on iOS. It's so much better as it automatically fast forwards through people's crappy theme music and stuff like that when they're not talking.
Yep, it's genius. You can listen to an hour and 45 minutes. You can listen to an hour podcast in 45 minutes, usually.
And you can also listen for an hour and 45 minutes if you want.
Like.
To anything you want.
Yeah.
It goes longer, too. They have to pay for getting the hour and 50 minutes, but that's different. I'm kidding.
Nice. All right, so those are the reviews.
Absolutely. So, hey, man, we got some Azure news. These guys, man, are they going to stop? We can't keep up on all the stuff coming out from Azure. This stuff is, they are flying.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts, isn't it? You know, I don't know. We've joked about this on the show before that we don't know if those guys sleep. I'm actually not sure if they do. I'm going to go over to their buildings, and they're spread across a whole bunch of buildings, obviously. But I'm going to go over there and check their pulse, because they're either being fed some sort of speedy drug to keep them going, or they're just on a massive roll. So it's awesome.
Are you sure they're in buildings? Aren't they when they have new stuff, they just kind of spin up a bunch of new instances of people and just, burn through them and stuff, and we don't need them anymore. Just delete them. They're burned out. We're going to go through and upgrade them to new people.
Yeah, so instances in Azure are easy to create, right? It's just clickety click, click, click. Instances of people, I'm not sure how they're cranking those out so fast.
Special buses. Hey, well, before we dive into the news here, let's do the wah, wah, wah part of the Azure news.
Oh, what's the wah, wah, wah?
Oh, man. It's really tough to do certain things in Azure when Azure goes down.
Yeah. Did somebody forget to renew an SSL cert again this year?
No, that wasn't it. So last week, which was the week of, November the 17th? I don't remember exactly what day it is.
Yeah, 18th, I think it was.
Yeah, 18th for, 11 hours?
Ouchie nanas.
Yeah, so what they did is they had some performance stuff around Azure Storage that they were rolling out. And they did it the way that they were supposed to, which is, go through and deploy it to some customers. Everything looked good. Great performance telemetry coming back. Rolled it out to some more customers. Even better. Rolled it out to, and I should say customers, instances and farms and stuff.
Yeah.
And they kept rolling it out more and more and more, and it kept getting greater and greater. And then when someone kind of hit the, let's go global with this, when it rolled out to everyone, the proverbial shit hit the fan, and something happened which caused some infinite loop on the storage, on Azure Storage.
Oh, no.
And of course, what is Azure built on? Azure.
Yeah.
So when something at the core goes bad, everything kind of goes bad. And so
I found, the thing I found kind of amusing about this, I mean, it's not amusing, but the funny thing is, that it was a performance update that caused the performance problems.
Yeah.
Which is a little unfortunate.
It was part of performance update that caused the problem, and it was part what they said, an operational error. Sounds like someone had a up. But
yeah,
they had an issue there. They had to go through and rolled the performance update out, but then it meant that you had to go through and kind of restore everything or reboot everything, and that took a little bit of time, and things got a little squirrely. So I wish I could have blamed one of my demos breaking at the conference last week on this, but Azure was back up and running when my demo broke. So, but I still said it was about Azure, so I got out of it that way.
Yeah, you can blame Microsoft. Why not?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, so it sounds like it just affected storage, right? Blobs in particular?
Storage and a bunch of other things, because websites are built on storage. And so I know that a bunch of websites went out, like the Azure status site went out because it's on Azure websites. And so they had to revert back to using Twitter.
Oh, yeah, look at this. Impacted services. Azure Storage, Virtual Machines, SQL Geo Restore, SQL Import Export, websites, Azure Search, Azure Cache, Management Portal, Service Bus, Event Hubs, Visual Studio, Machine Learning, HD Insights, Automation, Virtual Network, Stream Analytics, Active Directory, Store Simple, and Azure Backup Services.
Was anything not affected?
Kind of, that sounds like everything.
Yeah, I was like, what wasn't affected? It seems like everything got affected.
That seems like a lot. God, that's not good.
No, it wasn't good. But I mean, they recovered. They're transparent. I love how they're just so upfront when something hits. They just kind of say, hey, look, we're having problems. When they know what's going on, they immediately tell everybody, here's what's going on. We're still doing a root cause analysis. I think that is still underway. But they're very transparent about it. So, it's going to happen. And it's how you recover from it. I always think that, when a product has defective, or when you have a bad thing at a restaurant or something like this, I think you learn the most about a company how that they react to that kind of stuff. And to me, I mean, was I happy about the fact that my site and dev.office.com and all these other sites went offline? No. But
yeah,
you know what? I'm happy with the way they deal with it, and it's kind of they got it up and running again. So
yeah, fortunately, it something at this magnitude doesn't happen particularly often, which is good.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we've got some other news from Azure here. Probably the next one on the list is about the new Azure SDK 2.5 for .NET and the new Visual Studio hookups and things. So the SDK for .NET, you go download it. There's downloads for the various variations of Visual Studio. Is that the right word? Various versions. That's what I was looking for.
I was going to see how far you get down the path here. This is kind of fun to watch.
There's versions for VS and Visual Studio. So the new SDK for .NET for different versions of Visual Studio comes with a bunch of different things, some new quick starts. So basically some new templates to how you get started with various Azure services and things like that. Diagnostic improvements for cloud services and virtual machines. So basically, being able to turn on diagnostics and get more insights and so forth about what's going on much more easily in your Azure projects. What else we got here? Azure Resource Manager tools. So these guys, you can go, deploy new things straight from VS with these? They're using different templates?
Yeah, it's kind of like you could set up like a resource group, and there's like you create this template, and then it's like, I want a website, a SQL, and da-da-da-da, and it's like, I can go stand all that stuff up for you, and then I can do another one of those, and another one, so it's great for like dev to QA to test to production and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, gotcha. So you sort of define your resources and things, and sort of in a rubber stamp kind of manner, and then punch it out. Yeah.
Yep.
Web jobs, remote debugging, and Server Explorer support. So we talked about web jobs, I believe, in the last episode, maybe very briefly, or the episode before. Yep. Basically, these little nuggets of code that you can run in the background up in Azure, kind of like a cron job or a timer job for those SharePoint people amongst us. But so you can publish these web jobs from the console now, or also remote debug them. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah, there's a bunch of little improvements in there. I guess one other one that I think is super interesting, at least to me, is support for blob folders in Storage Explorer. So this lets you go take a look through your blob storage containers from the Storage Explorer and see what you got in there. You've had to use a bunch of different third-party tools for these kinds of things, so they're slowly chipping away at that stuff and adding it into VS.
Yeah, agreed. Nice update. Definitely a nice update on it.
Yeah, and that all sort of marries up with what's going on in Visual Studio 2015 preview and the new stuff that's coming there.
So another bit of news here that we had is that there's a really popular tool out there called AZ Copy. They're in version 3. Version 3 went to general availability, and kind of what this helps you do is it helps you take content from, say one place in your storage through the command line and move it to somewhere else or through between different storage accounts.
So it's as if you want to rejig the where you've put stuff?
Yeah, without pulling it down, but instead making all the transfer happen up in Azure.
Otherwise, if you've got a lot of stuff, like terabytes of content or whatever, you don't want to be copying it to your machine and then back up to the cloud, right?
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, so my turn. Ooh, what do I want to pick next? Gosh.
We have a plethora.
Yeah, I would say real-time data streaming and data factory services. So if you've played with Azure Event Hubs, this is kind of a way for, I think we briefly touched on this last time about going into GA, I think. Huge for either projects or solutions, I should say, that are, or apps that generating a lot of content or pulling in content from all around the place. Things like Internet of Things sensors and stuff. So event hubs are a great way to ingest and store those massive sort of streams of data coming in. Also, Stream Analytics, a cost-effective event processing engine that helps uncover real-time insights from event streams. So this is all about being able to take action based on all that plethora of data coming in and decide what to do.
Great for like apps that are spitting out tons of like logging and telemetry type data to where you don't have to. You could have it, subscribe to it in multiple different formats or multiple different kind of channels as it comes out to process it without bottlenecking your application in any way. It just keeps spitting stuff out and somebody else is there to pick everything up and collate it and analyze it.
Yeah, so I guess it sort of goes hand in hand with event hubs, right? You want to stream, millions and millions of little snippets of information into Azure, and so event hubs are great for ingesting that. And then Stream Analytics for being able to sort of take action based on, all that stream of data coming in.
Yep.
And then Data Factory. This is not something I'd heard about before. Do you know much about this one?
Not at all. I don't know anything about it.
No, so I'm going to sound a little noobish on this. But basically, Data Factory, super simple to get started. Go through the portal to do it. You could basically, it says here, orchestrating information production pipelines across multiple data services. So Data Factory makes it easy to coordinate and manage data sources from a variety of locations, including ones both in the cloud and on-premises. Support for working with data on-premises includes SQL Server, as well as Azure Blobs tables, HD Insight systems, and SQL databases in the... so it's a preview release by the sounds of it, in this particular new service. So... yeah, I haven't done anything in anger with this yet. I guess it's a brand new service that's come out in preview, so we'll have to do a little bit of digging and see, of what use it will be.
Absolutely. Yes, I got a couple here that I'll run through them relatively quick here. One of them is that Microsoft has added auditing for Azure SQL databases. That was in preview. Now it's in general availability, so we'll have a link that points off to that guy. Pretty self-explanatory of auditing in SQL, but that's now available to us in Azure SQL DBs. There's a new thing called the Azure Operational Insights, and this is...
Yeah, this looks really cool.
This does look cool. This is kind of like, think about this as, I kind of like to think about this as almost like a system center, but a cloudy system center that meshes between your on-prem and cloud, where you can look at all of your machines and see how everything is going between like the logs that are coming out of them, between seeing your, making sure all the servers are up to date, make global configuration changes. You can even go through and to look at and see like what the malware status is of all these guys, and be able to analyze like are any issues coming up that I'm dealing with that has a little bit of insights into it as well. So it's a cool little dashboard that you can go take a look at that is in preview mode now. We'll give you a link to it to be able to go take a look, to go see if you can sign up for the preview and see if it's something that would work well for you.
Yeah, I think the idea here is right as your environments get more sophisticated and you've got more stuff to manage, you can't be doing that on a piecemeal basis with each particular resource. You want a sort of an overall view of what's going on in your environment, and making sure all your machines are up to date, and a sort of a central place to go see what's going on and if there are any issues. So, for whether it be security issues or sort of maintenance issues or, support issues, things like that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And then there was one more here that I wanted to touch on too. And I'm just going to put this one in a big bucket of tons of networking improvements in Azure.
That's cool. Yeah. This is the grab bag of awesome, right?
Yeah. And we're not going to, we want to go on too long on this, but let me just say, I'm going to throw out just a couple things here. So if you're interested, we'll provide a link to where you can find more information about this. And then there's also a really good episode on the Azure podcast. That's azpodcast.azurewebsites.net, specifically episode 51, where they talked about some networking updates. But you can do things like now create security groups for your networks to define access control rules for inbound and outbound traffic. You can do multi-NIC support on your virtual NICs on a VM. You can do forced tunneling. You can actually have MAC address spoofing. You can do there's certain enhancements around express routes. These are pretty cool. So if I was a customer that bought express route and get a certain number of connections, I can actually give you the ability to come in and create some of those circuits, use up like 3 of the circuits of my 10 that I pay for to use it for your use. You can create the specific routes. And then if I delete you from having access, it automatically deletes your routes and your circuits that you've set up.
Yeah, gotcha.
New VPN gateways, new operational and audit logs for VNet gateways. There's advanced virtual network gateway policies that you can set up to make sure, if it's how you want to do certain types of encryption. You can have source IP affinity, nested policies for traffic manager, portal support for managing an internal load balancer, and the ability for dealing with reserved and instance IP addresses that you've penned to your virtual machine. So it's a whole grab bag of a bunch of networking improvements that Microsoft has made. There's a good session from TechEd Europe also that went into this too. It was that you can find on Channel 9. I think it was CDP B227 was the session if you want to go watch that.
Gotcha. Hey, one final thing on the new stuff coming out in Azure. Something that really caught my eye was some new VM extensions that are available. One of them in particular called Octopus. I don't know if you've looked at Octopus, but it's a cool tool for deploying ASP.NET apps to different environments. And so they've got a new VM extension for Octopus in Azure. I haven't used it I've read a bunch about it, but I haven't actually used it in a real world project. But this is it aims to solve that age-old problem of how you deploy apps between, dev, test, stage, prod, UAT, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so being able to use Octopus and deploy into Azure VMs using this new Octopus VM extension seems like a pretty cool thing for folks that are building .NET apps and trying to manage those across different environments. And one of those could obviously be Azure.
That's pretty cool.
That's nice, yeah.
So, hey, there was another bit of news here that you kind of understand a bit better than I do, but something about being a new company, being a cloud partner.
Yeah, so back a few days ago now, gosh, I don't even know what date this was. It was a couple of weeks ago, maybe roughly around the 12th of November, 2014. Rackspace, who we've had on the show before, we had Jeff DeVerta, was a guest on the show talking about Rackspace and the cloud and so forth. Rackspace have announced a new partnership with Microsoft. They've come on board as a new Cloud OS network partner. And so basically what that means is that Rackspace now basically support a whole bunch of Microsoft Cloud technologies, right? So things like the Azure Pack, Hyper-V, System Center, things like that for managing your environments in the Rackspace cloud, with the idea that it makes it a whole bunch easier for customers, whatever provider they happen to be using. They've got a standard sort of set of technologies to run sort of private cloud or things in private cloud with Rackspace. So there are a few of partners in this space. I think about 100 partners around the world, according to Microsoft's VP of hosting service providers. So there's more and more folks getting on board, basically offering this sort of standard set of technologies to be able to host all this stuff. But so Rackspace was one that really caught my eye because Jeff DeVerta was in the blog post talking about this, and we've had him on the show. So we'll link off to the to the blog post about this, and people can read more about it up on the Rackspace blog.
Awesome. And that would be all the news for Azure that's fit to speak, not print.
That's it. That's all we've got.
Well, we got to save some for future episodes, which I keep saying that, and I'm looking at our list here, and it just keeps getting longer. So
yeah,
there's times when it's like some of the stuff we just talked about is actually not new for this episode, but it's new because we haven't gotten around to it in a couple other episodes. So it's just...
we're having a hard time keeping up.
Are they going to take the holiday season off? Can they just chill?
Yeah, hopefully.
Maybe the 11-hour outage set them back. Or maybe they everybody that was working on features had to fix that stuff, and so they've been slowed down. But
I wouldn't count on it, man. The Goo's a beast.
God, these guys are crazy. We should just have all we have is just a podcast that all it does is just read out news just about Azure. It's just
totally.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
especially for customers.
Definitely.
One of the things that I did last week was that I sat down with the keynote speaker that came in for SPLive 360, someone who's on your team, Sonya Koptyev, and she talked about a lot of the new stuff that was coming out with that you guys have been working on. I guess she talked about some of the same stuff that you talked about as well over in Amsterdam the same week, and did a really good keynote loaded full of demos at SPLive. It was really impressive to see a Microsoft speaker in a keynote with a Mac showing Xcode related to Office 365 and demos during her session. It was one heck of a hard session to deliver too, with as many demos as she did, jumping between different tenants and stuff. And it was
lots of demos.
Wow, that is a tall order for someone to have to go through. She did a great job though, absolutely fantastic, bang out job.
You got to be sacrificing your chickens to the demo gods or whatever.
Oh man, absolutely. Yeah, so I sat down with Sonya and I talked about some of the stuff that she's responsible for. I know she runs dev.office.com, which is a great site now that it's been refreshed. Great resource for doing Office 365 and SharePoint development. And we talked about that stuff, and also about some stuff about the conferences coming up next year around Build and Ignite, and some of the plans that she has for helping people get ramped up on Office 365 development. So, do you want to say anything before we kind of roll this interview, or?
Yeah, no, I think this, we've got loads coming out. Azure are going at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I'd say we're probably going at, maybe 1,000 in comparison to 1,000,000.
Maybe Mach 2.
But yeah, but we've always got new stuff coming out, and I think, Sonya did a great job of talking through some of that and at the show as well. And we'll try and keep up the pace and keep people updated on what's going on.
Yeah, so I did this interview with Sonya on November the 18th, 2014 at SPLive. We sat down right outside one of the session rooms during a break. So it was somewhat quiet. We had a couple people talking around us and stuff, but hopefully it sounds good. And with that, I guess we'll go ahead and play the interview. So this is Sonya Koptyev with Microsoft. So I'm sitting here at the SPLive 360 conference in Orlando, Florida with Sonya Koptyev from Microsoft. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic. So you just graced us with a keynote for the conference today for the SharePoint Dev story. So I was there, but I'm going to let you talk a little bit about what you talked about at the keynote.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun to present that session. So I covered basically an overview of what we released and talked about at Tech Ed Barcelona at the end of October, and our news landed there, which was the general availability of the Office 365 APIs, the app launcher, and being able to extend the app launcher with your custom apps and experiences inside of Office 365. That was a huge bit of feedback that we heard. We talked about the iOS SDK coming in preview, so landing right beside the Android SDK that's in preview, and then also the Xamarin and Cordova for cross-platform SDKs. And then we also talked about the file extension handler, which is also in preview, and so giving folks some insight into the way that we're planning on expanding and investing in the Office 365 endpoints and being able to extend inside the endpoints, but also the APIs that we're investing in and how they can hook into the APIs as well in a RESTful way from native apps, web apps, what have you.
It was a ton of stuff that was just like rapid fire, all coming out pretty quick. I know you guys had a ton of announcements that came out of Tech Ed. Yeah, so a lot of that stuff we were just talking about, like the Office 365 APIs, and that's, I know going from preview to RTM, there were a bunch of changes that we saw from going from preview to RTM. The fact that you guys, it starts out with like an OData v4 endpoint, people are absolutely going to love that. The versioning of the APIs as well, that's going to be fantastic. That's, of course, the first thing I saw that. A couple weeks ago, CJ and I talked a little bit about some of these announcements, and remember when he said this during our interview, he was like going, oh, and they're all version. It's like,
Yep.
oh no, hold on a second now. When do we get this for SharePoint now? Right away.
Right.
But I know it's all like in due time and stuff. So yeah, thank you very much for coming down to the conference. Really appreciate you taking the time to explain some of these new things that people might not have been aware of from Tech Ed, but still just stuff that just is surprising, the more and more stuff that's coming out. It's a different Office division. So many dev and cross-platform stuff that's coming out these days. It's really cool.
It's so exciting, and it's exciting to see the momentum that we're building and how quickly the engineering team is putting all of these new features out, and they're just doing a phenomenal job. So
it's really cool, and talk about just being a different experience too. I'm on a Mac, but I know you presented on a Mac. And
I did.
That's not just the demo machine too. I know that's your machine.
That is my machine.
And I was seeing too that you were talking about doing iOS, and you were doing an iPad demo and stuff, and it's just an Xcode. First time I've ever seen like a Microsoft person with Xcode in a demo.
Running.
It was really cool. It's a different experience. So
it's fun, and you know what? Having been a dev in a past life before putting on the marketing hat, it's fun. It's a lot of toys that we get to play around with. It's new stuff. It's being able to play in a new set of technologies that we weren't able to play in before is a ton of fun.
It's just everything is just so much more open. It's not, you don't have these silos up, and I really liked it when Satya took over. I really liked the way he said, to be a Microsoft customer, you don't have to have every single thing Microsoft, but it's just like, if you're an Xbox person, then you're a Microsoft customer. If you've got Azure, if you've got Office 365, you're a Microsoft customer, but you can use an iPhone, you can use an iPad, you can use a Mac. It's just, the openness it's really cool, and it's seeing the news last week that came out about all the open source stuff too. That was really, seeing that take over Hacker News and really control that for a few days was really, really cool. So
we trended on Twitter.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty freaking cool.
It's very, very cool.
Of course, that one, the big one, was just the first question that came out of that one was, when do I get Visual Studio native on OS X? So I don't have to use Xcode or have to run in a VM. That's right now. It's the only reason I'm using Windows is to switch over to use Visual Studio.
There's VS Online.
It's VS Online, yeah, but it's not the same native experience.
And then you're at the mercy of the interwebs.
Yeah. Well, of course, now whenever I presented at a conference, I'd always assume that there was going to be no internet in the room, and you do everything all localized.
Yep.
It's impossible now.
Yep.
It's absolutely impossible, especially if you're 365 or Azure. I mean, it's just, there's no offline story for that.
We literally are at the mercy, right, of the Wi-Fi or the hardwire connection that's in the room, right? And there's I forget whether it was on Facebook or on Twitter, but there was the Maslow's hierarchy of basic needs, right? And then you see the foundation now. Somebody wrote in Wi-Fi underneath, like shelter, right?
It's pretty
so that is the state of the world today.
Yeah. It's good stuff. So one of the things I want to talk to you too about today was, so you're, I guess, explain like your role. Like, what do you do? I totally skipped past all of that.
That's okay. I have an amazingly fun role. So I get to handle all of our outbound marketing, which to devs is really quite different than any other outbound marketing role that you would find, primarily because devs don't do marketing, right? We don't do marketing for devs. So everything you see is actual stuff, right? So we demoed the actual APIs. We demo actual apps that are built, right? We don't just demo slideware.
Gotcha.
So it's a lot of fun. I handle, as far as day-to-day stuff, our site, so dev.office.com, which is now the place to go for anything Office dev related. You get all the latest resources, all the news, all the code samples, all the links to everything, and that we keep updated on a weekly basis. So, constantly improving there. I also run our Twitter and our Facebook, and so all of our social media and interaction, and really our community engagement. So anything on Yammer, I organize the Yam Jams that we have monthly on the Office 365 Technical Network, making sure that folks are actually answering questions on Stack Overflow, the MSDN forums, really just community engagement and really driving a healthy, vibrant community around Office 365 developer.
An ongoing discussion, right? It's just making sure that discussion is going on. It's nice to have that too, because for so long, we didn't have that kind of a resource. There was stuff that was in MSDN, and there was stuff that was scattered over different places and stuff, but we didn't have like a one place to really go for a lot of stuff. So it's nice. A lot of the work that you guys have done with dev.office.com, incredibly useful too, incredibly resourcul stuff.
Glad to hear it.
So, I mean, I know that it's cool. Like, I like the way you guys have done. I guess if people haven't seen this yet, they really should check it out. But how with the Office 365 APIs that are out there, and how you guys have kind of surfaced them on dev.office.com or through that vehicle, to be able to see, like, very easily see the code snippets of how to go about doing something, and then being able to try them out with the sandbox, that thing is, that's getting a lot of, you saw a lot of people, like when you demoed that in the session today, were just like, that's cool.
Yeah,
how does that work?
A lot of folks taking pictures too. It's great. So
Yep.
the sandbox is great, and then also the MSDN team has actually worked in the same type of theory into the docs directly. So if you go to the API reference docs, you'll actually see the documentation on the API, but then also the little try button where it will actually execute the call
That's
right
really
there
cool.
in line, and then out to the demo tenant and bring you back all the OData stuff.
It's
Yeah.
really cool to be able to see, like, right in line, what kind of response do I get back from running this? And so you don't have to go try and pull that stuff out and go show it somewhere else or whatever.
Exactly.
It's really slick.
That's starting nicely onto the wave of the next set of major updates that we're going to have, where we're really trying to help devs get on-ramped onto Office 365 development in a very easy and streamlined way without having to go through the full environment setup before they can actually get at the APIs, right, and try them out.
So going to that a little bit, like, what kinds of things are you guys looking to in terms of the changes or the improvements you're making to dev.office.com, to helping people get ramped up, to helping people get started? Because, I mean, today, it's daunting when someone says, I want to be a developer, and it's not so much of grab Visual Studio, file a new project, and get going. There's other stuff that doesn't come out of the box in Visual Studio, and you need an environment to kind of get started and everything. So
Yep.
what kind of stuff are you guys doing to that effect to try and to kind of help people get on board really quick?
Yeah, so our next top priority is to revamp the getting started experience that's there now. It's a good starting point. It was a good initial V1.
Good starting for getting started.
For getting started, yeah. It was a good V1, but definitely hearing lots of feedback around how to improve it and how to make it better and how to make it clearer and more concise for devs. So that'll be Pri 1, working in partnership with the MSDN team there to help improve that piece, but also the bigger picture of just getting any dev right on-ramped in a way from where they may know nothing absolutely around Office 365 development. How do you get them from knowing absolutely nothing to building a successful app, right? Or whatever success looks like for them, keeping them engaged, getting them the resources, right? And so what I'm finding too is that as much as some of these things are inherent for us and we know about dev.office.com, we know where to go, we know where to find the resources, right? We know where to look for our stuff in GitHub. A lot of devs don't. So
Right.
really, even through the site, making it a much more interactive experience where it's both push and pull, right?
Yeah.
Where they're pulling the stuff, but we're also pushing some information to them on a very regular basis and checking in with them, making sure they're doing okay, right? And having that be a little bit more of a handheld progression rather than just dropping them on a site and leaving them be.
That's good to hear, because I know there's a lot of people, you guys are heavily leveraging GitHub for a lot of your stuff. So I know you have organizational account, github.com/office dev. And there's a tremendous amount of stuff that's there. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, but then also in the same episode, we're going to talk to Jeremy Thake as well,
Yep.
one of your colleagues, and we'll go into some of the stuff on GitHub with him as well. But it was, when I did this session, I did a workshop yesterday, and I showed off a little bit of the patterns and practices stuff, and I showed a little bit of the training content that's there for the virtual academy. And I found, I was surprised that a number of people that were in the room that are devs, where GitHub is completely foreign to them. They have no idea what this is, and they, for some reason, the word Git it's intimidating to a lot of people. And so it's being, are you gonna have anything where it kind of like walks you through, like, how do I go about getting these things from this stuff? Because when I saw, we were talking to somebody yesterday, they went in and they were, I was showing them how to go get some of the samples and stuff, and I was like, look, you don't want to do Git, click download zip, you grab it right there. But if you want to go through and clone and pull everything in,
Right.
They didn't know, like, going, yeah, what's this clone thing, whatever. I was like, watch, you just grab this, go to the command line, type this one thing in, drop this in, and poof, you got the sample right there. And they're like, that's it? Like,
Yeah.
You don't have to know anything else. If you just want to consume and not interact, grab it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's cool to see you guys adopt that and really embrace the open source model like that.
Well, it's really trying to bridge that chasm, right? Because there's the traditional Microsoft Stack developer, and they're used to their Visual Studio, they're used to their TFS, they know how to get things in there, they know how to source code through that.
They're not used to open source.
They're not used to open source, right?
Right.
And then you've got all the other devs who we're now starting to address, right, with the iOS SDK, with the Android SDK, and this completely other community that we haven't historically really interacted with, but they are very familiar with GitHub,
Right.
And how to work that
Yeah.
set of resources that are available to them. And it's really the next big priority for dev.office.com is to bridge that gap, right? So
Yeah.
not only bringing the technologies together, not only addressing all of these different types of devs, but also making it a consistently awesome experience across the board for everyone.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I like that approach too. I like the fact that it's, we're going to jump to this place where so many people already are in GitHub, and if you're not already there, we're going to show you how to get there and how to take advantage of it. But you're right, it's like the thing that I like so much about it, I was kind of evangelizing a bit in my workshop yesterday about the new approach with development for Office 365 and for Office 365 as a whole, SharePoint as well, is that everything that we're doing now doesn't feel so much like SharePointy, or it doesn't feel like something specific to that. Yes, we have this app model, but the whole thing is really just a description for stuff that's founded on OAuth and Open API or REST APIs and stuff. And if you're a .NET guy, there's a good SDK to kind of help you get started and stuff. But it's nice to kind of see those things to really talk to this totally different audience.
Yep.
They see what's available to be able to take advantage of it. And I'm doing a session in a couple months at a conference that I'm walking into a completely hostile crowd that is not a Microsoft crowd at all. It's more of a Google crowd completely, and it's talking about doing the same thing.
Yeah.
How do we take advantage of using Office 365 as an enterprise platform, especially for those of you that are building apps for this stuff. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm very intimidated by that talk that I'm going to give. It's a 20-minute talk, and I'm very intimidated already.
I'm sure it'll go great. Just have IntelliJ on there.
Oh yeah,
Android Studio.
All going to be
it'll be
JavaScript.
fine.
We're going to do JavaScript and TypeScript and stuff, but it's it definitely, I can see that just like going, yeah, I'm speaking on behalf of this, and so it'll be fun to see how that goes off. But we'll see. It's only 20 minutes, so 20 minutes of pain is okay. 20-minute session with 2 presenters. So yeah, I think it's more hard to get the logistics of how we're going to pull this off for just 20 minutes.
Shorter talks are tougher.
Yeah. So all the changes you're talking about going through and helping people get onboarded and getting ramped up and stuff like that, do you guys have a time frame for that stuff, or when can we expect to see that? Or
Absolutely. The next big push will be around the build time frame, so late April.
Okay, April 2015, yeah.
Yep, as well as hopefully you'll see the next big set of our dev announcements around that time frame as well.
So we're looking at a good 3-4 months right from where we are right now.
Yep.
I guess when we're recording this right now. Okay, so build, and then I know you got another big conference coming up is Ignite, so that'll be immediately after that. And
Yes.
so how do you kind of talk to like the devs that are trying to figure out where they're supposed to go, right? Because individually I had a hard time trying to figure it out as well. It's like, do I go to Ignite? Do I go to that's the roll up of everything, or am I more of a dev that's focused on cloud stuff and focused on Office dev? You guys are going to have a presence there. So how do you figure to
Sure. So all of our big announcements will land at Build, and then we'll do a rerun at Ignite, but we'll also delve deeper into the topics, because at Build we're only going to have a set number of sessions.
Right.
Same thing at Ignite, but we'll likely have more sessions at Ignite, just given the size and scope of the conference itself.
Gotcha. So Build's more for the developer, Ignite is more for the product, and so it's kind of a big tent kind of a thing.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. So Ignite will cover everything. It'll be a nice mixture of IT pro, end user, customer, and dev as well. But Build is definitely the dev-focused conference.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like then if someone is if they're concerned about going to both, they're an Office 365 person, they're concerned about which one they should probably choose, then you're going to get all Office 365 and all the Office dev stuff from Build. You'll get that at Ignite.
You will get that at Ignite.
So think of that as kind of like a roll up of all of them.
Yes. Absolutely.
It's already hard to get into Build anyway. It sells out so darn fast.
That's
Everybody
true.
wants the free devices that all the vendors give out. So, Well, cool. Anything else you want to talk about before we kind of wrap this up, or
keep the feedback coming?
Feedback
we
coming.
are listening. Hopefully, that's starting to resonate with everybody now.
Let's talk a little bit about that too, because you mentioned that in your keynote. I totally blanked on this. About how you guys use Stack Overflow, but you use user voice and you're using Yammer to have those conversations and stuff. Talk a little bit about how you were saying how you guys take the feedback and you guys triage it every week or every few weeks or something like that.
With user voice, because that is a voting platform, and so that helps us prioritize the suggestions coming in. You guys actually prioritize them for us with your votes, right? So we take every single week. I sit down with someone, Doreen Brown from the engineering team, and we actually triage all the new stuff that's come in the last week, and the ones that we send off to engineering to prioritize go right on their backlog, and they are actually prioritized into their scrums on a weekly basis. Yeah. So talk about direct feedback back to the product group.
Yeah, no kidding. It
really is.
You would never see that. You'd always it would always seem like it was always the big enterprises that could sit down and have those kind of discussions with Microsoft, or like you sit there and kind of like peel off conversations at a conference or something to have those kind of conversations. But having that conversation going nonstop, that's really, really cool.
Absolutely.
You've seen a lot of those things actually roll into the platform from that feedback.
Yes, exactly. And we try to give a nice roll-up of all the things that have gone in to the latest release at the release time. So Tech Ed, we covered a little bit of an overview of all the suggestions that have fed into that release. And so at Build, we'll be doing the same thing.
Oh, that'll be really cool.
Yep.
Build and at
Ignite as well.
Okay.
Yes, at both. You'll see it at both.
Like to be both, but it's like I know that's 2 weeks, 2 conferences, a little bit
Back
much.
to back is tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So with user voice, do you guys find how do you kind of identify, or how do you kind of look at feedback that's coming in from, someone like me? It's just like a single developer that's saying, I think that you guys should do this, and other people are going to vote on it. But then you've got like enterprises, and you've got someone who's like, multiple thousands of seats or 10,000 seats are coming in. Obviously, their feedback should weigh a bit more than what my feedback is.
Sure.
So I mean, do they use user voice as well, or I mean
they do. We send everybody to user voice, right? So that kind of levels the playing field, because that prioritizes the suggestions for the engineering team based on level of interest.
Gotcha.
Right, rather than the source where it's coming from. However, the big enterprise customers also have account teams, right?
That's
so
true,
they
yeah.
get to us through different channels as well. So we hear them very loudly,
yeah.
but we also hear the community very loudly. So it's a nice shift, I think, where we really get a good feel for what the community wants and what's necessary in the market, and the features that are
that's cool.
we want to include.
So would you say that, I mean, it seems like the community side of it probably wasn't as, I guess it's not really, I don't want to say it. I was going to say that the community, did they not have as much of a voice in the past, but it's just easier for their voice to get into the feedback loop and everything, and to get that, to see where the planning kind of comes from. And it's really silly, because I've gone through, and I know I've put a couple things in user voice and seen a couple things voted up and see them go through, and it's like, yep, being implemented. It's like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yep.
This is really cool.
Yep.
And not waiting 3 years to try and see is, will you implement it, or
Maybe,
just make it on the cutting floor?
And we wouldn't even tell you anyway, right?
No.
Yeah, we'd never
Well,
get back.
I'd forget that I was the one that actually recommended it.
Right.
I remember sitting in a session one time, it was an NDA session, but we're going to go into details. It was years ago, but it was someone was going through and talking about a feature, and they were like going, "Yeah, this is one that you submitted to us, that we saw like in the thing. Remember we talked about this?" It's like,
I did.
I had no recollection of doing. They go, "Yeah, you totally made this great case for it." I'm like,
Really?
I have no idea. Was that like at a bar one night? I totally missed it. Well, cool. Thanks a lot for taking the time to sit down and talk about this, and thanks for coming down to the conference as well. So
Thanks for having me. Love to come back.
Absolutely. So thanks again. If you have a question for us, go to microsoftcloudshow.com/questions, where you can submit it as text or record it as a WAV or an MP3 file, and provide a link so that we can play your question on the show. Our theme music is an excerpt from Evaporated Eric by Monk Turner, used under Creative Commons. You can subscribe to us in iTunes by searching for the Microsoft Cloud Show, or via RSS at microsoftcloudshow.com, where you'll also find a full transcript and show notes of each episode. You can find us on Facebook searching for the Microsoft Cloud Show, or on Twitter at MS Cloud Show. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.